Welcome to episode 21 of the Racket House podcast, where we discuss all things music and success in our fun corner of the world, helping to inspire, inform, educate, motivate, and keep hope alive for musicians, creatives, entrepreneurs, and anyone else who wants to grow their brand in the music or creative spaces. Today, we have a first on the Racket House podcast. We welcome Alexander Hume, who is a Seattle-based mixing and mastering engineer, educator, and producer. And when I say first, I mean the first engineer we've had on the podcast. So I'm really excited about this. He's a certified Apple Digital Masters ADM provider. He's worked on projects for major labels including Capitol, Columbia, Universal Music Group, Mousetrap, and Insomniac. With years of experience in both live and studio settings, Hume is known for elevating artists' work with technical precision and musical intuition. Listed among the top 2% of mastering engineers on Muso.ai, Hume has built a reputation not only for his sonic craftsmanship, but also for his commitment to helping artists grow and his communication skills, which I can verify. Through Hume Audio, he blends technical expertise with a deep understanding of musical storytelling, establishing him as a sought-after partner for creators looking to bring their sound to its highest potential. I'm so excited to have Hume on for fun chat about the music world as he sees it. Let's welcome Alex to the show. What's up, Alex? How we doing?
Good. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here, man. Thanks for being here. And yeah, it's exciting because, like I mentioned, you're the first audio engineer that I've had on the podcast. We've had a variety of people, as you know, from artists to managers to talent buyers to even just social media people who don't even necessarily exclusively work in music. And I think your perspective is really interesting. I've really valued our partnership in working on some of my own music. And we've technically been working together for years now because I was a part of a label, shout out Top Shelf Disco, that would use you for pretty much every release we had. And so I'm not even really sure where that relationship came from. How did you even tag into the Top Shelf atmosphere and ecosystem? Where did that all come from?
I'm pretty sure it was either through Twin Flame or Rose Garden, one of those guys. And yeah, I don't even know how I got connected with them, to be honest. Yeah, that's kind of like the nature of my work, is that you end up making a lot of connections through another person, and it just kind of is like this game of telephone of clients of like
Yeah.
who referred who referred who. But yeah, I remember working for them. I had a mug from them. I think I have it somewhere that says Big Disco Energy, and I also have a shirt from them. I know I have that still.
Yeah. So for those listening out there who have no idea what we're talking about, so when I moved, I was living in San Francisco. I moved to LA, and I wanted to get connected to people kind of on the same page as me, kind of in the same headspace. I'm a house music guy. Our audience, my audience, and the people I work with are not exclusively dance music, so generally we try to keep the conversation broad. But so my artist project has always pretty much been in dance and electronic, as a DJ, as a producer. Later in the years after being a DJ for so long. And so I moved to LA, and I was like, who can I get connected with in LA who's like, a house head, who's doing the thing, who, be good to collaborate with. And I got connected to his real name's Drake, and our friend Zach.
Mm-hmm.
And they were running a collective called Top Shelf Disco. And I chatted with them, super nice guys. At the time, they were just throwing events around LA. This was pre-COVID, I think like 2019. So went to some of their events. They booked me for stuff. I booked them for stuff because I started throwing events in LA. And then COVID shut everything down, and they decided to start a record label. And I had some recent experience at a small independent label, and I really liked doing that kind of stuff, the A&R stuff, the marketing, the partnerships. And so I was like, hey, I'd love to help and get involved. And so we had this like really dope team. We had admittedly a lot of cooks in the kitchen with 5 of us trying to run a label together. But it was great. And we would release our own music. We'd get demos from other artists, and we created a great brand. And the whole like big disco energy thing was like one of our, yeah, it was kind of like our motto and our merch and stuff. And so I really liked that. That was a really fun time in my life that lasted for a few years. But yeah, I just know because like Drake would handle this sort of the release process as far as like once we sign a track, what happens next. And I wasn't like as privy to the exact process there, but sounds like, yeah, any track that came in that needed a master would be sent to Hume, as we just called you Hume. So yeah, send
Yeah, a
it to
lot of
Hume,
people do.
and yeah, no, it was great, and the results were always very consistent and very good, and we had a great catalog, like super super fun. And so when I started, producing more music and releasing my own music, it was like a no brainer. Like, who do I go to help me with my mix and master? And I really, really enjoy working with you. And that's why I want to have you on, is not just to talk about the work we've done, but like to talk about the work you do with so many artists, so many labels, like I mentioned in the intro, and kind of like what you're seeing in your world, because what you see in your world is so different than like what I see in my world as both somebody who works with artists and as an artist myself. And is also different than the person next to them.
Yeah.
But to just like really let people know like what Alex adds, the value add is really that, like, like we mentioned, the communication stuff. But you'll also get on Zooms with me and go over even some of the smallest details in a track of mine. Maybe it's not the production elements, but it's the mixing elements, or some things that are admittedly seem small but add a lot to the overall production and really
Mhm.
help with the final product. And that is something that I can't tell you how valuable that is, and goes such a long way. So I'll stop talking there. But like, talk to me about kind of like, it's a reflection of your personality, I believe. But like, kind of, is that sort of something that you've built out over the years in doing this? Is that something that you were doing from day one? Talk to me about like your thoughts around not only just delivering a product, but actually working with the artist and helping them be a better artist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all the kind words. I really appreciate all that. And yeah, and the feeling is mutual. I think that it's incredibly important. It's inseparable to like have the consulting element be part of audio engineering. I just think that it's really good. It's good, bottom line, to involve other people in the music making process, and it doesn't have to necessarily be the engineering. But I always think of some of the most amazing records often have a lot of people involved, whether it's in the marketing or all this different sort of aspects of it. And so I just feel like it's really good to utilize your communication skills and kind of find compromises. It's like always about finding compromises. And that happens a lot too in the subjective decisions too. It's not just, like in the kind of more like tactful choices that we make. It can be also be like in the engineering process or the writing process, like being free, and also just openly discussing like, okay, here's some ideas that could maybe elevate this track more or reach more people. And yeah, not being afraid to have those conversations. Some people are kind of like they think of feedback as they've had bad experiences with feedback because they've worked with people that don't know how to give good feedback or don't know how to have like a productive conversation. So that's another really important thing, and a thing I've learned a lot over the years, and also in school to be honest as well. But just having really intentional conversations about what you're thinking, rather than it being always just like, this is cool, or,
Yeah.
it's dope. Like that's good. That's good critique as well. I mean, it's good to give those kind of critiques, but I love dissecting things a little bit more and thinking about how can we achieve a better final like song or album, whatever. Like any little detail is always important.
Yeah, and I mean, you're also putting your name on it too, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
in a way, as much as maybe the artist will be public about it or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So people, when they hear that final product, to tie it back to the engineer, I mean, the engineer unless artists are doing it themselves, which there's plenty out there who do. You probably work with more than just artists, right? You work with bands as well, and more than
Hmm.
just dance music as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
work with all different kinds of music. I would say most of it is dance music, and it's about half and half independent artists and like brands or labels.
That's great.
But it's a pretty big mix of everything, though.
Right. So yeah, you work with a wide variety of artists, musicians, and even beyond into some bigger entities. And so when it comes to like the feedback process, obviously, like, yeah, I mean, I'm such a direct person who I believe, like, I would rather, and for me personally, I'd rather hear constructive feedback, even if it's negative, but how do we make it better, rather than just, like, to your point, like just being a yes man. That doesn't get anyone anywhere, right?
Hmm.
Like, maybe soften the blow with like a compliment sandwich, like
Hmm.
the good, the feedback, and then a good again, or something like that. But
Yeah.
when it comes time to do the consulting stuff or the feedback or whatever, is that like, are people coming to you and asking for that, or are you kind of, sort of asking permission to say, like, hey, can I give you some notes?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, and a little bit more. But yeah, I want to make sure that I'm not hurting their feelings, first of all, and being clear about the kind of communication that I want to have. Um, but back to what I was saying in the last little bit, like it is inseparable. Like I need to do that, and then jumping back forward to this, um, it is part of it. It's like it's part of it, and it makes my job easier too. So
Yeah.
it's like I have to give that feedback because in my mind it's like I've done this for a while, so I know when there is a project there's a problem that I would rather have them do, or just it's like a general thing where I love teaching people things and allowing them to do it on their own. I'm always a big fan of if it's a subtle thing that they can do on their own, and I don't want and I could not do a STEM master on it, then I'll tell them how to do that. Or if it's something that I could do better on in a STEM master, then I'll tell them how to go through that process or like what we can do to better achieve a better end result. Um, but I think that that's essential because that was a that was an experience, or rather a thing I did not experience when I was sending my own music out to get engineered like many years ago. And so that was an indicator to me of like, if I want to do this, which I was thinking at the time that I did, then I need to do all that stuff. And then it's just as important as the actual engineering itself, is all that communication and the kind of admin time. Um, Unfortunately, but it's not terrible, but like probably half of my time is doing the admin stuff, like
Hmm.
emailing and listening to songs and
Yep.
doing all that kind of stuff. So it ends up being a big part of the work if you want to do it right. And I think it pays off in the quality of service.
Wait, you're saying as a solo entrepreneur, you have to do admin work? No way.
I'm sure you know a lot about
Yeah,
that
you're
too.
preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir. The amount of time I spend on stuff that isn't working with clients versus is, yeah, it's
Mhm.
very disproportionate.
Oh yeah,
Well, that's
for
an
sure.
interesting little piece there that I don't think I knew previously, where you were shopping out your music to get mixed, mastered, potentially, and some sending it to an engineer. You had firsthand experience with what that process was like, and you basically said, hey, I think I can do it better, or there's a
Mhm.
better way, or I can provide better service in some way, shape, or form. Is that accurate?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Both in electronic music that I was working on, and then also like I also like write and play like acoustic quote unquote music, but also using the computer, obviously. Um, but played instruments and singing and things like that. Um, and so through the process of that, of having other people engineer my music, learning about engineering, also to the credit of people that I worked with that were really good at what they did, and that when I had mastering done by them, then it was like inspirational to me of wanting to get more into mastering. And that was by Klaus Heavyweight Hill, who does
Mm-hmm.
a lot of mastering for Box of Cats.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really, really talented mastering engineer. Did mastering for a release of mine on Box of Cats, like I don't know, something years ago, 5 years ago. Um, and I was already doing engineering and mastering at the time, but I remember hearing that master and being like, wow, this is like a lot better than what I could do. And so just kind of feeling like inspired again to like want to do like higher, the possibility of like having other people involved and looking for other mentors. I had several other mentors at the time. Um, but to be honest, I felt like I was like getting really, really good. I think that a lot of mastering, the reality is the music that you're putting in. So when you're not working on the best stuff in the start, it can be hard because it's like you don't grow. Maybe you do. Maybe it's kind of like a Mr. Miyagi situation where it's like you're doing these like really, really menial kind of projects sometimes. But over time, I mean, stuff has been great, and it wasn't like it was all difficult projects at the time, but definitely for the start of my career, there were a lot more stuff, a lot more difficult projects, or the clients are really difficult. And I'm really fortunate now that I don't have any. I can't even think of the last time I had someone that was like really difficult. Like there's been difficult
Oh, that's so
projects,
nice
but
of you. Thanks.
no, it's true. I mean, there's been difficult projects, but there's
Yeah,
hasn't been a difficult client in a really long time, which is
that's
great.
great. I mean, well, I always say, your vibe attracts your tribe, man. Like,
Mhm.
you do good work for good people. Those people are going to recognize that and refer you to other good people who, you can do work for. So
Mhm.
that's great. What would you like? How would you define a difficult project? And maybe for people listening that aren't as technically experienced, like in sort of like layman's terms, what would be like, how do you consider a difficult project?
Yeah, so I would say most of the time, just speaking of like what happens in projects, like anecdotally, it's generally the kick and the bass, the kick envelope not being good. It's kind of a very simple explanation, and it's kind of the same thing for the bass, like the envelope not being good, or the sounds not being very refined. Like bass sound design is very particular, and then
Mhm.
also the stereo imaging is very important with the low end as well. So making sure that the low end is in phase, and so that's a thing that a lot of people struggle with. Like even like putting the kick in mono and the bass in mono doesn't just solve everything. And so even you put on a side chain, it's not like you do these things side chain or volume shaping. Suddenly it's like all those mix problems are gone because it's really important to dial in that relationship between the kick and the bass. Um, and then it's not only the relationship between the two, it's like each sound on its own, the relationship of the sub the fundamental of the bass or the kick, and then the higher frequencies, the click, making sure that all feels like nice and
Mm.
cohesive. And it's a hard thing to teach. Some people just have a really strong intuition for sound design and songwriting, so they can
Mhm.
get there, they can achieve that without really like understanding like any fundamentals of anything, which is great for them. But for a lot of people, I think it's really tough. Like it's hard to hear in that lower register too. Like our ears, I don't feel like are very well equipped, or maybe not intuitively. We don't hear really that well in that low register. Um, so yeah, it takes a lot of practice, but definitely like the low end. Um, and yeah, I think a lot of people generally have a good idea of like the upper mid range and the high end. That's a place where most people I work with are like getting it pretty close.
Mhm.
Another thing, kind of on that note, the main thing I run into as far as like what's the main issue or like common thing that I run into for people's projects
Mhm.
is that people do too much. And it's kind of ironic because people often think like, "Oh, what am I not doing?" But it's really that they've learned a lot about audio engineering. They've watched a lot of YouTube videos or reels or whatever, and they're taking all of this knowledge and they want to do it on their songs. And that's cool. It's fun to like practice stuff. It's like a video game. It feels really fun. It's very um what's the word? Exciting to do. But at the end of the day, the sounds that you record or use is like 90% of the game. And so when you apply these plugins and processes and stuff, they're changing the envelopes of your sound, so they're altering the waveform, they're altering the frequency response, they're changing it a lot. And so these processes aren't inherently good for the sounds. A lot of people kind of like will present them in that way because they're generally trying to sell you some plugin or a thing.
Sure.
So it'd be like, this clipper, like it'll make your sounds louder. But it's really good to be super intentional, I think, in the mixing process. And so a lot of people conflate the sound design and the like production, the writing with mixing and mastering. Whereas mixing and mastering should just be about like maximizing the sounds for loudness and articulation, making sure the transients are really punchy. If you just put a compressor on indiscriminately just because you've seen videos, and to be transparent here, it's not like I haven't been guilty of this before too, but like put a compressor on because you're like, I know I need to compress drums. And you put the compressor on, and then suddenly it's like compressing all the life out of the drums. You might not even need any compression on the drums if the samples are really punchy already. But on the other hand, if you use some like really dynamic samples, then you might notice that when you start to build your mix out, you're like, oh, I do need a compression on this sound. So like being really intentional in the mixing process is really good. When you're in the sound design, writing, arrangement process, it's like do whatever you want. Like there's literally no rules. But when it gets to mixing, it is really good to be like intentional with it. You want to make sure you're optimizing for loudness and you're optimizing for clarity. If things are like muffled or they're hitting into a limiter before anything else, that's just going to sound bad. Like it's not, there's no like subjective realm where it like sounds good. Like most people are going to think that that sounds bad. So doing a lot less. And then also like on the mix bus chain, on that note with the mix bus chain, just mix into a limiter. Like that's it. Just have just a limiter on the master track, mix into that, and that's all you need. It's like that's going to be an inevitable process that'll be in the mastering or like the release of the song. It always goes through a limiter. So if you are intentional about all the decisions and you have the limiter there, it just makes it so much nicer. Then you're not relying on these other things as a crutch. Because it does so much to change the envelopes, the frequency response, all this stuff. So you can dial in a really, really good mix and not even use anything on the master track. In fact, like you could just, if you're choosing the proper sounds and sound designing correctly, you could run everything just into the red on the main track. And I've seen people do that where they just export a 24-bit and it just clips everything above 0. So that you can do very, very little. I mean, to be clear here, it's like the samples matter a lot there. The sound design matters a lot. The arrangement matters a lot. If you have a ton of low end, it's going to sound really square and distorted. So
Yeah.
It needs to be that way kind of from the start. But anyways, yeah, end of my my monologue.
No. I mean, that's just the beginning of your monologue. I mean, it's almost like, I mean, yeah, I think you know, it's almost similar to DJing in a way. Like there's some analogies we can sort of use in both worlds, right? Where it's like, you know, technology's become so accessible that anyone can do it, right? Like, of course, for a long time, there's been programs like GarageBand and stuff where you can, you know, tinker around and make music. Fruity Loops now, FL Studio, all that has been around forever. Obviously, these other DAWs have been around for a long time too, but the barrier to entry is lower for everything, right? You can buy your laptop, you can download some production software, you can watch some YouTube videos, and you're boom off to the races. And then to your point, you know, people see something being used or talked about, but maybe they don't fully understand it, and then they kind of integrate it into whatever they're doing. I almost consider that something that's really been grinding my gears lately is like, as a guy who's been DJing for so long, like the new kids, and even when I do DJ lessons or I've seen maybe some younger kids DJ, they just the use of effects, right? Effect knobs and stuff like that. And like, I mean, I was in Amsterdam for ADE, Amsterdam Dance Event, big music conference last month, and I went to go see this DJ play who I've been loving his productions. He's definitely on a really good rise and trajectory. He's getting support from some big name veteran guys. and I went to see him DJ, and I'm like, dude, like chill with the effects. Like you're just using them too much. And then I go to see some veteran pros later in the night who are on the lineup, and I'm like, yeah, that's how you DJ. Like, so I almost consider those two things similar in different ways. Now, when you're maybe noticing some of this stuff in the projects you're handed, are you kind of just trying to put lipstick on the pig, or are you actually coming back and saying, hey, we need to take a step back? Like either you send them a list of things they need to work on, or it's like, hey, like we need to like peel back the layers. Because I think maybe I don't know, maybe in our earlier time in working together, I think maybe, and I don't want to speak for you, but maybe there were some projects you worked on that maybe could have used a little bit of work before the mix master, or on the mix and maybe before the master, and you just maybe took it and ran with it. I don't know. But, like at what point are you speaking up?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's always there's always kind of a compromise. It's like if I as long as like the low end isn't out of phase, or the envelopes aren't like overtly not focused on the transients, I can make it work. There's a lot of stuff that I can do. Um, there's definitely it's hard to know where to draw that line, and so what I do is I usually just look at the mix or the final song. Like I'm like, how close is this final song? That's sort of how that informs how to make that final decision. Um, the technology has gotten really amazing in the last like few years. So the main plugins that I feel like are really like change the game are the transient sustain EQs. So like split EQ is the one that I've been using. There's also the ozone equalizer, which is free, and that has the transient sustain mode. That allows you to essentially to completely like sculpt like the sound like in a way that hadn't been previously possible. I mean, I think split EQ's been around for a while, but like that really changes it. So what I'll often do is if I have the stems of the project, is just bring those stems in and see if I can get there with transient designing it. And that usually works a lot of the time, which is awesome. And same kind of goes for mastering too. So like there are times where the vocal of the track isn't loud enough, but it's just like so subtle, like it's like maybe just in a specific frequency range.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to tell them to just turn up the whole vocal. And I also don't want to like give them like a super specific note about like a specific frequency range sometimes, like bringing this up with dynamic EQ or whatever. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just such a subtle note. So in a case like that, I might like take the track, bus it to another track, and then use the ozone vocal like extraction thing. So I can just have just the vocal, and I'll put it in the delta mode. So that means I'll only be hearing the vocal that's like being extracted from the AI or whatever. And then I'll blend that in at a really low level. So I've done stuff like that before too. So the technology is crazy.
So it
But
sounds like you're doing as much as you can with what you're given, right? Is
yeah,
that fair to
yeah,
say?
yeah.
Has there ever been a scenario where you're like, I can't work on this. This is not good.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it does happen sometimes. But generally speaking, no. And the just because of that, the transient separation functionality, what else? Like the spectral dynamics processing, so like Soothe is like probably the most famous one. Soothe, and there's some ozone ones, a couple other things. Those really completely have changed like as far as problem solving,
Yeah.
there's such amazing problem solving tools. They're very often overused.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to what I was saying the last point. But they're amazing when you do need them. So if there is like boxiness in the vocal, like often the vocal people they record vocals and that's the vocal. Like it's not like, okay, go re-record the vocal. Like in a perfect world, sure, but like a lot of people I work with, that's the vocal. That's what we're working with.
So you
So
have
in
to
cases like that, you have to use Soothe. You have to do this stuff, and
you have to
have
use
to
your
kind of get it
tools.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And especially if they're not producers themselves, maybe they're working with a producer, but if they're maybe a singer-songwriter or an a guitar player or something like that, like they probably have even well, you don't want to assume, but they might have even less background or knowledge on like how to make it sound good. So then that's when your work becomes a little bit more involved. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say the most common, like the time where I feel like a project didn't really get there for me, like which does happen sometimes, like I'm just like, I don't know, like it's not that the client didn't approve it, but it's just like I'm frankly just I'm not really satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's generally the songwriting and the arrangement. And it's just kind of like I don't really know how to like take this idea to a place where I feel like it's going to reach more people. And that's okay. I mean, not every song has to be like the banger or like have to like reach everybody. But there are times where tracks I feel like fall like a little flat. And it's most of the time it's really just this like songwriting and arrangement, like not to deflect from like my ability, but like I really do believe that like the music itself matters so
Yeah.
much. And it's like kind of similar to the relationship with the engineering to that as well. Like the engineering does more for the song the more that the song has potential.
It's an
So like if
enhancement.
this,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
whereas like yeah, you
yeah.
like master a song, your first song, it's like it's generally it's not gonna do that much to make the song like that amazing. But like definitely the mastering on like a song that's already really well sussed out, it's like wow, this really makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I've experienced that with my own music, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the lipstick on the pig analogy, right? Like
Hmm.
if I hope everyone listening knows what that analogy is, but if you don't, you know, pigs aren't generally attractive, I guess. And if you put some lipstick on it, which are supposed to make people more attractive, it doesn't automatically make the pig attractive. So
Hmm.
if you take a song that isn't maybe the best, maybe it doesn't have the best, writing, arrangement, sounds, whatever components or elements of the song are being referenced, and you just try to slap a master on it, it's still not going to be that great. And you
Yeah.
have to use your sort of, but it sounds like you've kind of elevated from that. I mean, like you've been doing this how long now?
Like full time for several years now. But I've been doing mastering since I was like 16 or 17. So almost a bit over 10 years I've been doing um mastering just in general, but like professionally, I don't know. It's like it's kind of hard. It's the the timelines are kind of blurry because
Yeah,
it's just a gradual thing. But the last like 3 or 4 years, it's been my main thing that I've been doing pretty much full time.
that's great. And what intrigued you about the engineering side of things? Because it's not for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I always like writing music, and I always liked music in general. Like it was always kind of my favorite thing. I wasn't very good at school. Um,
You were good at something.
yeah, I think it wasn't that I was like it wasn't that I couldn't do well in school. It was just that like stuff bored me when it wasn't always like a new thing. Like I liked kind of problem solving a lot, and I liked having challenges and just goals and things. And so I think audio engineering really aligned with that side because like I loved art and I loved music, but I also like projects and I
Mhm.
liked kind of like managing stuff. And so I think those things aligned well, and I don't terribly like dislike business, so there's that element of it too. So it's like doing that.
I don't terribly dislike business.
Yeah.
I like to
Uh,
get paid for my skills,
yeah,
but
yeah. Yeah. The dealing with like the admin stuff was, I can deal with that. And yeah, I had worked a little bit in the arts over the years, like in different capacities, and so kind of seeing different sides of it, got to kind of see what role I wanted to do. Um, and then in college, I'd already been doing audio engineering, like it was already my like side gig. And then in college, they had really nice studios, and yeah, I didn't really expect. I kind of thought I was gonna get like a bachelor's of science or something. I'm not really sure what my plan was back then, but yeah, just being at school, I was like, oh okay, well I'm gonna do a bachelor of arts, and just like went in the studio all the time and did projects about mastering, like mentoring with mastering engineers. So yeah, it was just kind of slow, kind of all the while doing it, and then just slowly more and more until it was like a full-time thing.
Yeah. So this is over the course of, you don't need to publicly state your age or anything, but like what's kind of like the course of how many years? 10, 15, longer?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like over 10 years specifically mastering, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Yeah, I mean, I had my first experience with mastering in like 2012 or 2011, and then sent out some music with a friend of mine in like 2013. I think we sent that out to like get mastered by somebody else. So we just kind of been and I'm saying we, like me and my friend, we'd been doing music production like when I was in high school.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
a really, like, quite a long time now. Yeah, like
So
over 10 years.
do you remember the first time you got paid to do a project to master something?
Um, not not really, honestly. I don't know. I mean,
Must have been real memorable.
I definitely got paid like pretty early on because
Uh,
at least I understood that like you shouldn't always work for free. Like there's instances you're going to work for free. Like I work for free now sometimes, but it's just like free is a very relative thing. It's like, is it money? Is it free? Working for free, it's like you probably shouldn't be working for absolutely nothing.
yeah.
But like sometimes you do get paid no money, and it is an opportunity or a connection that is worth it, and you have to like weight that. But
Yeah.
that's a big thing that
Like
you'll
this, the stuff that,
experience.
yeah, the stuff, I mean, the stuff that you're doing is highly, highly skilled and valuable. And like, yeah. And there are no scenarios in which I would say like, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's kind of a judgment thing. If you have a relationship with somebody, you're doing somebody a favor, or they owe you, you owe them something or whatever. I mean, it's kind of the same with me, right? Like I will, I will offer a free consultation, for artist development strategy or brand growth or whatever that is, like because I've asked people to fill out a survey to how can I better serve people, or I wanted people to participate in a social media. I did this post recently where I was like, basically saying that I think artists are really struggling with the whole promote your music without promoting your music thing. That is kind of the main challenge right now. It's people are they're just fatigued by like, go listen to my song, out now, all that stuff. And it's like, how can we creatively come up with better ways to still promote our art and let people know what's going on, but doing, and so I put it out to the public. I was like, hey, like, let's hear it. Let's hear your pitches. What are your ideas? And I'll give a couple people who give me some good answers. I'll give you some time and we can chat and talk about what you're struggling with. And those are examples of times where I'm willing to give back. This isn't about me, but I try to give as much as I can for free, right? Like this podcast is an example, right? I have on people who I believe can talk about stuff that I don't know as well, and can offer tips and tricks and tell stories, and artists can latch onto that and hopefully take something away just by spending some time listening to us chat. And same thing with my weekly newsletter. Same thing with the free downloadable guides on my website, right? So I think there is a way to offer stuff for free that maybe isn't doing work for free, but at the same time, that just depends on kind of your bandwidth and how you want to be represented in the market. But I think like overall, you've done a really good job of providing quality work and being just a good human. And I think that really adds a lot of value overall.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think yeah, you always have to do some stuff for free, like no matter what kind of job you have, like there's stuff you're going to be doing probably that you're not getting paid for. Like at
Sure.
least a lot of people in this world. I'm
Maybe
not
it's not a direct transaction, but
Yeah.
you're doing something that
Yeah.
might benefit yourself long term,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm not advocating for this world
No,
that we live in, but that's
no,
life,
no.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, even DJs, like I'm very, very adamant about DJs not working for free.
Mhm.
There's unique situations where maybe that's something, but you have to think about, hey, how does it help you long term, or how are you giving back? I will do charity gigs. I'll do like a friend's house party or something, birthday or whatever, but generally if there's money changing hands, people should get paid. But I
Yeah,
think that's actually
totally.
something I wanted to ask you about, because I think the entrepreneurship piece of this is really interesting, right? Like, you have a skill set, you do really good work, you figured out a way to build a business around it. I think one of the things that artists struggle with is making money in music. And maybe making money in music doesn't mean getting paid for your music specifically. Maybe there are other ways that you can build a business or make money for something related to music. So how has your journey been around the business side of things and building your business, making enough money to sustain yourself and grow and things like that? Like, what have been some of your winning tactics there?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's like to run any successful business, it's important to be really good at what you do. So it's good to not, I see a lot of business related kind of social media content at times, like on Reels or whatever, YouTube just like recommended to me. And a lot of them will all be saying like, do all this, like, do all this crazy like admin stuff, or like buy all this software, buy all this like buy all this stuff. All you need to do is just do the thing and get
Yeah.
money from people, and then keep doing it.
Keep doing the thing.
That's like the core of it. And it's really easy to like see all these products and see like suites and web stuff and like whatever. It's like I just started off doing it by word of mouth, and then I made a website. I had like like a free website for a little while. Started making enough money, and then like one of the first things I did was buy like my domain and buy just like my brand, and then just have that. And that was just that's kind of it. That's kind of everything you need. But you do. I mean, obviously you need the equipment, but really important to be good at what you do. Number one, but not like overextend. Like it's good to not just be like, this is it. I'm like, it can, not saying for people to not like give up everything and like pursue a passion thing. Like if you have like a nest egg, or you're comfortable to do that, you have another job that sustains you and you can do that, by all means go into it. But it's really good to like be realistic. So I'm just
Yes.
saying, like,
Yes.
don't just, if you don't have a lot of money saved up, you probably shouldn't just be like, I'm going to be this thing. Because if you're not already that thing, it's going to be really hard to become that thing in a short amount of time. So
There's definitely like an on-ramp, unless you can make the money that you need to live your life right off the bat, yeah, you're probably going to need to be burning it at both ends.
yep. Yeah,
For
for
me,
sure.
I was a 15-year corporate sales guy, and luckily some things fell my way. I'm not a trust fund baby by any means. I've earned everything on my own, but when I was able to make that decision of like, hey, I tested the market. I was like, this light bulb went off in my head. I was done with corporate. I'm like, okay, like let's use that entrepreneurship degree I got in college. And I just took a video. I was like, okay, I wonder if this could be a thing. My thing was, if you don't know, it was like all these artists coming to me for advice over the years, because I had the artist management experience. I've been in a couple small labels. I've done all these different things in music. And I was like, would people want to work with me one-on-one? Could I like be a consultant in music, and that kind of thing? And yeah, I just posted a video of myself on Instagram, and I had a dozen people like reach out to me because of that video, and my first couple clients within a couple weeks. And I was like, okay, this is real. So it almost happened accidentally, if you will. Like the idea came to me, I put it out there. I was like, could I do this thing? And I got clients out of it, and I was like, all right, this is it. And it's been challenging. It's been really challenging. But I do believe I'm on the right trajectory. But things have evolved too, right? It's not just the consulting of the strategy stuff. I'm actually running like a marketing agency and helping artists like promote their work, and have some other stuff there too. So I think to your point, like, yeah, do the damn thing is probably the biggest takeaway here. There's people very close to me in my life who want to start their own thing, but the sort of paralysis around like, what do I do? Which direction do I go? And how do I start is honestly the biggest challenge. So like it sounds like you kind of you were learning your skills, you were getting really good at what you were doing, and then through your network, you started offering services, and then word kind of got out, were you doing any advertising marketing? Is all of your business 100% referral? Like, how did the growth happen?
Yeah, I've never done really any marketing besides like I paid for promotion on like social media for stuff, and that was a huge waste of money for me in my experience. Yeah, I mean it's like the way to the way to be popular just in the world is just be in people's minds.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's all I started focusing on. I was just like, how can I be in people's minds? So I was
Yep.
like, okay, well, I just do really good work
Mm-hmm.
because then people will like my stuff and they'll mention me to other people. Be on social media so people see me occasionally. And yeah, that's kind of everything you can do. And then if you go outside and you are out in public, you tell people what you do. You try and don't be weird about it. Just like, mention it to people that are in conversation, like this is what I do. They might know someone that'll lead to a gig like locally or that through that game of telephone, like
Yeah.
you hear from one person to the next. um but yeah, social media has like definitely been helpful. I've met some clients through there, but not as many as you'd think. That's kind of
Mm.
the thing, is that like the majority of them, let's say 80%, I should actually maybe look into this, but maybe 80%, let's say, are referrals. Um, yeah, or someone who's heard of my work. Maybe like it's kind of like an indirect referral, but like they've heard my engineering work, my mastering, whatever, and then they hire me because of that. That's like part of that pool, and then maybe 20%, maybe less, is social media. So it's a lot less than you would think for my business. It's going to vary for every business, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but that works well for me because there is so much admin time. There is so much time kind of like onboarding a new client, developing that new relationship, getting to know kind of their tendencies or things I need to work on. Some people I work with are great too. I mean, some people I work with and it's literally just like, here are the stems. I know it's going to be good. Like I've never, like some people I've worked with where it's just like they're pro. Like they just, I know, and it's a delight working with people. But there are often people where I'm like need to spend a lot of time just getting the files over, just working on stuff. But
Yeah.
it's so variable. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. That's
just
yeah.
gotta
I mean,
you got to prepare for that side of it.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you raise great points. I mean, you talk about even just being out in public and talking to people. I mean, that is so important, and I think that is so like understated in our world. Like, I'm always trying to get artists to be like, look, great that you're making music in your studio, great that you're recording some content and getting it out there, but you need to get outside. You need to
Hmm.
go meet
Yeah.
people or support shows, or
Hmm.
that stuff is the best. And then to your point about social media, I think can be a great tool. I think if people establish themselves as experts in what they do and do a really good job sharing that stuff online and social media, maybe you're giving, maybe that we talk about the free work, maybe you're just giving away tips, or here's how to do
Yeah.
something very
Sure.
elementary that maybe a lot of producers skip, or
Hmm.
something like that. That could get you some reputation. But also,
Hmm.
dude, thank your family for this, but Hume is a unique name. Like that
Yeah.
is a name that you remember. Oh, it's
Hmm.
Hume, like a Hume Audio. Like that is just, it rolls off the tongue.
Hmm.
And I think that's like that in itself contributes to a really strong brand, in my opinion,
Yeah.
at
Yeah. It
least.
worked out well. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's good to definitely not like it's hard to I'm trying to think of how to say this. Like let things happen as they happen, I guess, is kind of a lesson I've learned. It's like if you force stuff, it's not gonna work. Like if you try and like if you try and make an artist project work by just forcing it to work, it's probably not gonna happen. You have to actually like do the stuff. And that's not as fun to like think about it just being like you have to like climb this ladder, like a social ladder, or do the grunt work. But the reality is like a lot of people like have to go through that. Like I wasn't just always working on awesome projects, and it wasn't like I just became a studio intern at some amazing studio like out of
Yeah.
college and then suddenly I'm working on all these amazing records. That's not the reality for most people. And so it's easy to like look at, it's the same for artists as well though. Like it's easy to look at like successful artists and think like, they just paid their way to be that or whatever. But it's
Or they,
like the reality is there's a lot of people that didn't do that and you just don't really see it
yeah.
because over the years they've accumulated new management, they've accumulated marketing people,
Yeah.
and so what you see on Instagram is like not necessarily like their history. Like it's
Right.
just kind of you just see them in the now,
Yeah.
but it's so carefully curated for like these big brands and big artists and things. So it's a good thing for people to like always be cognizant of is like everyone's at different stages in that, and some people just get lucky and they just get shot right to the front of the line, and it's easy to look at those people and kind of coulda woulda shoulda yourself, but it's like at the end of the day just like got to just keep plugging away, doing the work. If you don't have work coming in, then you got to show yourself online or be out in person. There are people that are making a living in like the local show scenes in most cities, and they're doing well for themselves, making a living off nightlife.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's easy for people to see like the social media stuff and think like, wow, this person has 100,000 followers, like they must be doing really well for themselves, but
Yeah.
they might not be even selling tickets to their shows.
Right.
So it's like it's important to like bring it back into reality. Like a lot of time, like it's really easy to kind of idealize the industry and idealize your job. So just being like really grounded and like just like when you're starting off, like I just have a couple clients, like I'm going to do the best fucking job I can ever do for these people and hopefully they'll tell their friends. And then when you don't have any work, then you're like, okay, cool. Now I'm going to go out and get clients. Like, how do I go get clients for this? Share content about what I'm doing or like document your process, like all that sort of stuff. That's a great way in my mind to create content without having to really think about it. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a thing for artists that works really well too, is like if you're just living your life and you're not really thinking about like creating content, you'll have so much more material because you're just doing the stuff you normally do, and like people find that interesting. They find it a lot more interesting than like self promo. So if you're
You
just like
you
documenting like here's
yeah.
what I do, people are gonna
Yeah.
be like, oh, it's interesting.
You're stealing my job from me. You're gonna put me out of business because now you're becoming a social media expert and work with all these artists on that stuff. Yeah, I mean 1,000% yes. Like human, interesting. Like a recent thing. Well, to go back on that, first of all, like people are not born with Grammys right in their hands. Like that, you don't
Mm-hmm.
come out of the womb with Billboard #1, right? Like
No,
that doesn't happen.
generally not.
And at this conference in Amsterdam, a lot of the same kind of topics are coming up or talking points, but it's like, I forget what the phrase was, but like, uh, a 5-year overnight success story, or like using the analogy of like, it took this person actually years to get where they are, but it seems like or feels like an overnight success story, right? Because you didn't know about that person and all of a sudden they're everywhere, but they actually have been working their asses off behind the scenes for a long, long
Mm-hmm.
time
100%.
to do what they do, right?
Yeah.
And that is a huge part of it. And then the other piece is like, we haven't talked about AI too much, and probably that's great, maybe for another time. But I think as AI becomes a bigger and bigger thing, one of the things that it can't take away from us is the human element, right? Is that human connection. And so the social media stuff, anyone who follows me, and hopefully pays attention, like knows that I fucking scream this from the mountaintops, but like nobody cares about your music as much as they used to. They care about the human stuff. They want to connect. I always say people come for the music and they stay for the person behind the music.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I
like
totally agree with that.
it's in if you're putting out stuff that's interesting, educational, inspirational, funny, entertaining, whatever, right? Like there's probably 4 buckets of category of stuff that people typically latch onto. Then great. I and I'm gonna make a post about this because it's my own life, that I went to a show on Friday here in Denver. There's this venue called the Mission Ballroom. Shout out Mission Ballroom. And they have you been to Denver before? Have you spent much time
No.
here? No. probably arguably one of the best venues in Denver, and maybe in the US, or at least the western half of the US. It's custom sound system. It's they have this, apparently it's not technically a disco ball, but I'm calling it a disco ball. It was like an art project. It's called the Crescendo, I believe. It's insane. If you go on my profile, you'll see a video. But basically, I was at the concert Friday night. I took a video of the thing because it doesn't go off all the time or at every show. Apparently, I did some research on this. The every artist that comes and headlines the venue, their team gets briefed on this insane state of the art disco ball, and if they want to incorporate it into their show, they can. But it's like it's not. It has its own lighting system. It rotates around. It's like you have to actually like use it, you know. But I'm always so fascinated when I'm at a show there and it goes off, because it doesn't always go off. And I took a video of it. I literally 9-second clip, put it on Instagram and TikTok, and I go, "This is this disco ball in Denver is the most badass disco ball in the world. Like, tell me I'm wrong." And it's blowing up. It's like it's getting a ton of engagement. It's getting a ton of shares. The Mission Ballroom reposted it. TikTok, it's got like 2,000 likes already, something like that, something crazy. Just because it's interesting. Like, you don't see that every day, and it also spurs conversation because people are like, well, no, this one's better or that one's better, or actually I heard you have to spend $5,000 just to use it. You know, all these things start materializing, and I'm just like, I had the heads up play to put my own music behind the video, and you know, at the very least, maybe people are hearing that song in the background when they're sharing this content. But that's this whole side rant just to say that, like, that's the stuff that people latch onto versus a video of somebody playing my song, DJing with it, and I'm like, oh, it's out next Friday, go listen to it. Like, I'm not gonna care as much as that stuff. So I think you have a unique opportunity because you know so much about stuff that people don't know about, and you could like show them some really interesting things, like a simple trick that could change the whole way they go about producing music. So I think that stuff is really interesting, and we barely even just scratched the surface here. So let's call it like your 10-year history of doing this thing. Like, what have been some of your biggest lessons and takeaways, and how have you really seen the industry change?
Yeah, I mean, on the note of like not working for free, like that honestly is like a lesson I've learned, of like being calculated about that decision of like working for free, because your time is money, and so generally you only want to be working for free for your time. But that's a thing that I didn't like fully understand, I think. So just making sure that you're not actually doing the work for free, you're like putting in the work for free. So
Yeah.
when I say that, it's like, you know, self promo or social media or consulting or meeting with a potential client to help them do some things so you can get the client, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Having a meeting with a label or whatever. Like sometimes you're not on the clock.
Right. You're
But
not getting paid for every minute of every hour of every day necessarily, but you're it's parts of a whole.
Yeah, but getting paid for your work, that you always should get paid for your work. Do not do the actual work itself, whether that is, you know, like let's say you're in advertising, just as an example. Like if you're setting up the Google AdSense for them or whatever, and you're clicking submit, you should be paid, or like you should have an outstanding invoice at least at that point.
And
Uh,
discussing that up front. Like, so there's expectations beforehand. What is the exact pricing? What is this going to cost? Even too, for all you like musicians and artists out there who perform and you're working on getting gigs, like, oh God, the amount of times I've heard people talk about, like, you got to be upfront. It can be an uncomfortable situation, but if somebody hits you up and they're like offering you a gig, you need to ask what they're going to pay you.
yeah,
And you're
yeah.
not the bad person for doing that. You're
No, not
protecting
at all.
you're protecting everything.
Yeah, and a thing you can do too is like I'm not consistent with this, is like you can decide if this is important to you. It's like you can decide to have someone pay you up front, or you can have them pay you after. Like I'm not consistent with that. I'm like honestly pretty inconsistent with that. But what I have done is that if I get a weird vibe about somebody, that, like it feels like, is this person like even real? I'll just kind of like get to, obviously I'll do the consult and stuff. It's not like I'm going to like lack on the duty, just send them an invoice, but I've gotten kind of weird vibes from people before, and you can use the invoice to kind of to weed people out sometimes. And that's okay. Like, I think that's totally fine. Like, if someone's
Mm-hmm.
like taking a lot of your time already, and then
Yeah.
they're like, okay, like, let's work, let's work, let's work. And then you're just like, okay, cool. Just send them an invoice.
Yeah.
If they're not paying that, just wait. Just be like, okay, well, I sent you the invoice, and then just wait. And then, like, most of the time when I've done that, they don't want to work with me. So it's just nice because then
You're
you
weeding
just
them out. Yeah. I mean,
stop having to deal with people that don't want to pay.
yeah.
Or I'll
I
just
mean,
ask people just straight up. I mean, that's the most common tactic I use, is just be like, here's my pricing. Like, just here it is. So then usually they just won't even reply.
yeah.
If they can't afford it, then they're just not going to reply.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like, yeah, definitely like business and sales 101 type of stuff. Like I'm very grateful that I had, that corporate experience because
Mm.
I learned a ton, especially one particular company I worked for. The joke around the industry was like, if you go to work for this company, it's almost like getting your MBA in sales, like, like your master's in sales, because they teach you so much about stuff. But yeah, like
Mm.
being upfront about the cost and just being, make sure everybody's on the same page. And like, I mean, with a majority of the work that I do and my clients, it's generally you have to pay upfront for at least, whether it depends if it's an advertising campaign or a playlist campaign versus like a 3-month artist development program. You at least got to pay the first month with that. And then, so we're not doing any work until that stuff is paid. And yeah, to your point, like I will get people from all around the world who want to talk to me or work with me or who are interested in doing business. And I want your help, man. I want to partner with you, or I need some help with promo. And I'm like, okay, like, what's your budget? you know, and even on I have intake forms that ask, how much you're willing to invest in yourself or all this stuff. So I can try to weed out the people who aren't quite there yet. And
Yeah.
I've been very direct about that stuff, and people will be like, well, I'll hit you up when I got the cash or something like that. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm also like, save your money. Like if this amount of money, which to me isn't that much, is a big deal for you, don't spend it on this. Like save it
Oh
for
yeah, for
something,
sure. Yeah, I do that. I do that like once a month too, where
Yeah.
I'll get someone who's sending me music that it sounds really cool, but it just needs a lot of work and a lot, like, too many aspects. I can't even
Yeah.
like take the time.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times when I've told people that, like, just been like, hey, like, this needs a lot of work in these aspects, but there's some really cool stuff happening here, they'll come back a lot of the time. Like,
Yeah.
I've had several people come back from that kind of
Yeah.
experience,
If
where they just, the feedback I gave them
yeah.
was what made them
Yeah.
hire me.
If you're a real human and like that's where it comes into the like you're still giving more than you take. And if you're still giving people something to latch onto and maybe you can't do business with them, but you give them some nugget to walk away with, you're just building your own brand and you're building your reputation, and people like that sort of thing. So I know we
Hmm.
both got to go here. I will ask, kind of like I was kind of curious what you've seen change in the industry over the years, if you have a
Yeah, yeah,
quick answer for that. And then I just
yeah.
kind of wanted to leave on like a positive note, like giving artists hope for the future and everything that's happening right now. Maybe kind of like a key takeaway with what you're seeing in your world and some advice you want to give these, aspiring artists out there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so for your first question, things that
Yes.
have
I like to ask
changed.
multi-part questions.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great.
It's not
First
good. No,
part.
it's not good actually. Don't
I like
encourage it.
it. The first question. I think the main thing I've noticed is that people were not making the tracks as loud. Like, their more songs are more dynamic in like the early 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
Things got really, really loud. Then things got dynamic again. And then now we're reaching a cool place, which I feel like is kind of the compromise of the two, which that's exciting to see, where it's like tracks are very loud, but they still sound good, which is nice. Whereas before, when things were loud, I feel like several years ago, they were sounding just like loud for the sake of being loud. But now things sound loud and don't sound as distorted, which that's great. I think that's a positive change, because I think loud and compressed or limited music gets a bad rap, but I think it actually sounds really nice in like certain genres,
Mm.
particularly like EDM and pop music. So I'm down with that if we can get it louder and have it still sound good. Um, and then also I've just seen, I feel like we're kind of like seeing a cycle end or start right now, not sure which one, in like people's tastes for music,
Mm.
because there was just such a huge oversaturation of all different genres that were popular like in the last like 2 years or so. So you've just been seeing like a lot more stuff that's really pushing the envelope as far as like what people like, just making music that people kind of want to hear, but that's incorporating a lot of different stylistic influences over the last few years. So specifically, I'm thinking about how we had a really we had a huge oversaturation of like Afro house and a big oversaturation of tech house. And so there's been some cool stuff lately I've heard where it's like kind of tech house, Afro house, and pop, and kind of traditional songwriting elements all like coming together. So it's cool to see kind of the next evolution of dance music that's happening right now. So I feel like we're on a good. The trajectory seems really good right now because I think people got tired of the Afro house edit stuff and it
Yeah,
got to
I
like
think in general,
meme level.
I think in general, I mean, this is always going to happen in music, especially since it's so accessible. But like everyone's going to copy everybody, and it is hard to be original. I'm very sick of the current tech house sound, that sort of like offbeat,
Hmm.
bass line and stuff happening. I don't think that's fun. I think artists need to create for themselves. Don't chase trends. Be unique. Do something cool that you're happy with, and try to just comparison is the thief of joy, which we were kind of talking about earlier in the conversation. But like comparison is the thief of joy, and so if we're comparing ourselves to others, it's going to take away from our joy in doing this. And we're all just ultimately doing this for ourselves. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, one tip for
Hmm.
producers, artists, anyone out there who's making music. What is one thing that they should take away from this conversation, ingrain in their brain, and
Hmm.
it's going to make them a better artist, musician, whatever? What is that one
Yeah.
thing?
So I encourage people to think of music as a language, and everybody can pretty much speak this language. Like I think everybody can. And so when you think of it in that way, it reduces it down to as when you're a novice in music, whether it's songwriting or engineering, whatever, you lack the understanding of the language at like a higher degree. Like you don't understand how to like formulate more complex sentences. You don't know how to say words. You don't know the vocabulary for certain things. And so as you get better, you'll develop a stronger foundation for all that stuff. But it's a really good thing to keep in mind is that like you can speak a language without fundamentally understanding all of it. So just like when you learn a language in school, or you learn a language just from being out in the world, like you learn words in other languages because of products or from people or things on the TV, whatever. So I think it's a very kind of poetic way of looking at music and just makes it kind of feel more open-ended and less defined. You don't need to like know the dictionary definition for stuff to do it. You can do stuff well and just do it completely off your intuition. It
Mm-hmm.
can help to understand. So like, if you want to know, if you want to get deeper into stuff and you're doing something, then investigate that. But I think thinking of music as a language helps us have a relationship with music that's a little bit more wholesome rather than
Yeah.
it can feel a little sterile and clinical sometimes with
Yeah.
YouTube and the tips and all this stuff, the
Mm-hmm.
plugins and all this stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
love that stuff, but it's like it's really good to think about kind of the ephemeral element of music and
I
the
love
the
that.
communication that we like have with each other.
I love that. I mean, I have experienced that in multiple places in my life. I really got into traveling in the last, 10 or so years. It was the first inspiration for my first tattoo, which is literally a disco ball globe, because I was in South America meeting people who maybe we didn't speak the same, language out of our mouths, but we bonded over the music, and especially being in Europe last month with the conference and people from all over the world enjoying the same music. It truly is universal. It is its own language. And I think that's an amazing takeaway and a great way to end this, for maybe an eventual part two. But I really appreciate your words, your wisdom, your perspective. It's been a great conversation. I don't. The time flew by. I got to go to a gig. You got something to do. Last thing we do is just do a quick smile for the camera, and we'll use that for our little thumbnail for the YouTube. So 3, 2,
Cool.
1, smile. All right, cool. Thanks so much. This has been Alexander Hume, Hume Audio. If you're somebody out there who needs mix, master, all that good stuff, or somebody to just be on their side to help make you better as an artist, make better music, look him up, hit him up. You can find him online. And yeah, this has been episode 21 of the Racket House podcast. We'll see you next time. Peace.